Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing a very late favorite books of 2014. I picked 5 I think that really stood out to me, as well as a few honorable mentions. So my first honorable mention of 2014 is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I technically finished this one on January 1st, but I don't give a fuck. I'm not waiting 364 days to talk about this. The experience of reading this felt really similar to how I felt when I was reading Divergent, which was that it might not be the best overall writing in the world, but it serves its purpose to just be a very fast, fun, engaging read. You're gonna fly through it, and obviously if you like sci-fi and 80s, you're gonna love this. Then is a book I've seen a lot of people mentioning in their favorites of 2014, and that is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This is a historical fiction about the last execution that took place in Iceland concerning a woman who was accused of murder, and I felt incredibly cold and isolated while reading this, and I think that's a testament to just how well the atmosphere and the setting was developed. The setting of Iceland really acts as one of the most important characters. I would probably recommend to read this one pretty soon if I were you, while it's still cold out, because I definitely think it would kind of add to the experience. Going in a very different direction, we have Dare Me by Megan Abbott. All I have to say is if you enjoyed Heathers, the 1980s movie, I would highly recommend this. It's kind of one of those nasty little books. Not nasty in a gross way, nasty in like an evil cheerleader, nasty type way. You will detest every single character. They're horrible, horrible people, but it is a lot of fun, and surprisingly it stuck with me quite a lot throughout the year. And my last honorable mention is Roses by G.R. Mannering. This is written by fellow YouTuber Rose Mannering. I'll link her channel down below. Now, she did not send me this book. She has no idea I was even going to talk about it. I do have a full review of this down below. It is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and it is absolutely beautiful. I was really blown away by how fantastic her descriptions in particular were, so if you do like fairy tale retellings, I would really recommend this. So now on to my top 5 official books of 2014. Number 5 is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. It was very, very difficult filming a review on this without having spoilers, so I will link that down below. It's completely spoiler free. It's very difficult to talk about because it's a story within a story within a story, kind of about a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. I'm sure you guys are aware of how strange like the formatting in the book is. It is a true mindfuck and it's terrifying, but I will link my review of that down below if you're interested in hearing a little bit more. It seems female Canadian lit keeps making its way into my top favorite books of the year. If you guys remember, last year my favorite overall book of the year was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is a collection of short stories, just beautiful and perfect, and I really want to check out some more Alice Munro. Number 3 is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. My friend, who is an avid reader, she should make a YouTube channel the more I think about it, but she kept saying Catherine because that's annoyingly what half my friends call me. She'd always been shoving this book on me. I finally read it and was blown away. It is about a male college student in Japan who is dealing with the death of his friend, while at the same time he falls for a mentally ill girl. I loved the dialogue, the characters, the setting. It's a very quietly beautiful book, and I believe Murakami one of his most favorites. I have After Dark on my TBR, if you saw me Instagram, my TBR shelf. I only have 28 books, so not too many, but it's in my closet, and I'm definitely going to get to that. Well, not soon because I'm not taking any books to Spain. I'm definitely too intimidated to check out IQ4, what's the next one? IQ 84. So I'll probably go with After Dark next. At number 2, we have Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. I could have sworn I read this in 2013. Hopefully I'm not wrong. But I went back and looked and I read this in January or February of 2014. So that's why it feels so long ago. One thing I want to clarify, I had a few people comment when I mentioned that I was dealing with applying to master's programs right now, and some people said, oh, are you looking into teaching or lit or Spanish? Definitely not a master's in Spanish. I still can't even fucking roll my R's. My Spanish actually isn't that bad, at least I like to think. I'm actually going to get a master's in industrial and organizational psychology. It's kind of psychology and business combined, and that's probably why I enjoyed this book so much. because it does talk about the workplace so much and kind of how overall in the States we have this mentality where being introverted is bad and being extroverted is necessary to be a leader and everything like that. Personality psych is probably my favorite area of psych, so that's another reason I loved this so much. But I don't care if you've never taken a psych class before, if you think you're the biggest extrovert out there, I would recommend this one to absolutely everyone. It's filled with so many clear examples and short stories from people. It's not just that I think anyone would enjoy reading this, but I think anyone would just get so much out of this and learn so much. So please go read this, and if you have other psych books you'd recommend, please let me know. And no, Malcolm Gladwell doesn't count. And my number one book of the year, hands down, is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Now, even though people had told me, Katie, this is nothing like Harry Potter for grown-ups, I'm very stubborn and I still thought, no, it's probably going to be like Harry Potter for grown-ups. Now, I'm sure many of you are aware of the early 1990s classic starring Reese Witherspoon and one of the London brothers called The Man on the Moon. Reading this felt like the process of watching that movie when I was, what, 7? I went into it expecting Harry Potter, expecting a very heartwarming story. Reese Witherspoon, 14, falling in love for the first time. And then what happens? The boy is mangled and run over by tractor equipment. Obviously no one is murdered on a farm in this book, but the experience reading it felt much more raw than I was anticipating. I saw Mother Effing Books say something similar, but this book just felt incredibly personal and incredibly intimate, and it affected me in such a huge way. And I think it struck me particularly hard because I just wasn't expecting it. If you don't know what this is about, the protagonist is Quentin. He is, I think when it starts, 18 years old, expecting to go to an Ivy League school, but instead he is invited to join a magical college. I know a lot of people don't enjoy this because Quentin is morose, he's selfish at times, he fucks up literally quite a lot, and he's overall just kind of depressed. So I find people either just despise Quentin and hate the book, or they really fall for it, kind of like I did. It struck a lot of chords, I think, especially for those of us. We're all trying to find our way and figure out what our purpose are, if there even is one. And I think this book tackles that extremely well, so I can't recommend this enough. And I've heard the books just get better in the series, so now, I think I forgot to say this, I'm going to get into my resolutions for 2015. I did not think I was going to have a single one because I'm not a resolutions person whatsoever, but then I really thought about it and I actually have, I think, 6 solid ones. So my number one goal, which I've already talked a fair amount about in my last video, is to choose books more critically. I know people are talking about reading more critically. I think I do that to a decent extent, but I really want to work on selecting books, not just based off the fact I've heard so much about them, and really select ones that I'm personally just really interested in. So that probably does mean staying away from YA a bit. Generally, I read about 50-50. It's probably going to be more so 25% YA, 75% adult, just because a lot of the books that are hyped up, you know, BookTube loves their YA. As you've seen from my favorites, there was one young adult book. I've had really bad luck with young adult, and I think it's because I'm just picking ones because they're hyped up. 2, and this is, it seems, every single other person's goal as well, is to read more diversely. In particular, I want to check out more Japanese and Chinese literature. 3 is I want to check out more classic high fantasy and classic sci-fi. Now when I say high fantasy, that means I'm not really talking about Game of Thrones. I don't know a ton about fantasy, but I don't think that's considered high fantasy, is it? I know there are some dragons in it, but I'm talking about high fantasy. So if any of you have recommendations, I'm especially interested in fantasy or sci-fi written by female authors, but that's not that important. I have nowhere to begin in this realm, so if any of you have recommendations, please let me know. Number 4 is to reread some of what I consider my favorite books. So that means I want to reread all 3 of Gillian Flynn's books. I want to reread Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. And I also want to reread a certain book that I loved that every single other person I've seen has vehemently hated, and that is The Marbury Lens by Andrew Smith. I've seen so many people say this is their least favorite book of all time, and I loved it. So I really want to reread these books to see if I enjoy them at all again. And number 5, I want to read a full book in Spanish. This is my goal last year, and I failed miserably. And I think I'm going to choose Shadow of the Wind. I'm completely blanking on who the author is, but I know that it takes place in Barcelona and it was actually originally written in Spanish, so I'm probably going to hold off on attempting that goal for another 4 months or so when my Spanish is quite good. But I want to be able to not just read it and understand the basics of what happened. I want to be able to read it and really be able to fully immerse myself in it and feel like I can rate it and review it in Spanish? No, probably not. Those are all my goals. In case you guys are wondering, I set my goal for 50 books last year and just missed it, but I really give zero fucks. I've seen some people saying they read like 180 books, and oh my god! If anybody sees people hitting over 100, hitting crazy numbers like that and feels bad about themselves, just remember even reading, say, 30 books is a lot. I just missed 50, but I'm really proud with that many. Hitting over 100 books is crazy. It's wonderful, but it's crazy. So I think we all need to remember that and not feel bad if we're not hitting that high of numbers. So those are my favorite books of 2014. Please let me know which books you would recommend, because again, I really want to select my books really critically. So let me know what your #1 book of 2014 was, because obviously that says a lot. I'm gonna go write the rest of my grad essays, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.